What do you eat? What can you possibly eat? How do you survive? How do you live? Oh my goodness, how do you live? Hi everyone, it's Audrey with It's Odd. Today we're going to start our Tuesday tea series where we share a tea and spill the tea on all things AIP. Today we're going to talk about what the heck do you eat anyway? I get asked that question a lot, and I bet if you're on AIP or kind of any alternative diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, even vegan, people ask you, what do you eat? What can you possibly eat? You can't have McDonald's fries, you can't have all the standard American diet stuff. How do you survive? How do you live? Oh my goodness, how do you live? I get asked that a lot in a lot of variations, some much more kindly than others, and some with sort of outrage and horror at what you can eat. The reality is you can eat a whole lot of stuff, and a lot of really good food too. It's not as limited as what people think. You just have to change your mindset a little bit around how you're going to get those nutrients in. Definitely, if you're coming to AIP from a very traditional standard American diet or lots of fast food or lots of processed food, the adjustment can be quite significant, not only in your health and the benefits that you get from it, but also in how you prepare food and how you approach food at all. I am very fortunate. We had come to AIP, or I had come to AIP through already doing several years of paleo. I've eaten vegan before. So we had already kind of started our health journey many years ago, working towards our optimal space for our bodies. So I was already sort of familiar with, how to bake things in a different way than with traditional wheat flours, or how to prepare vegetables and things with different seasonings and spices, how to cook from scratch, how to cook at home, which really, honestly, if you're following an AIP diet, you're gonna have to do that. And if you're cooking afraid of cooking, or if you're just not sure that you can do that, there are lots of great ways to prepare very simple, easy and delicious AIP meals that don't take a lot of skill or practice in the kitchen. So if you want, if you'd like a series on that, maybe a little mini series on really simple, easy, budget-friendly meals on AIP, just give a like and we'll get that, or comment down below and let me know. Happy to do that. But some of the things that we eat, and now I'm in a mixed family, meaning that I eat AIP. My husband and my son eat predominantly paleo, but they do still eat potatoes and rice. That would be the two starches that they still have. And we do that largely because we all have dietary issues. My husband has an allergy to shellfish. I have a ton of food sensitivities. I also have some health issues that have made it necessary for me to go down this path in terms of diet. My son also, he actually is on the autism spectrum. We have found that for him, gluten and dairy trigger his condition and make him feel awful. So that also gives them rashes and things like that. So for me, I have an actual dairy allergy. I'm highly sensitive to gluten. I break out in a rash. And then I just have a lot of other symptoms when I'm not eating AIP. My health, and maybe I'll do a separate video on my health journey, but I will say in the last 6 months, since I started eating this way, I've seen huge leaps and bounds in my overall well-being, and I am becoming well, like actually well, and starting to get back to how I felt when I was at my healthiest. So that's amazing, and I will do a video on that in the future. But in terms of what to eat, so there are so many things. Meat, any kind, pretty much. Just not ones with fillers and things like that, but in natural state. So beef, any kind of cut of beef. If you like liver, great. If you like steak, if you like ground beef, any of that stuff. Chicken, lamb, pork, any kind of fish, shellfish, seafood. Here I live on the coast, and so there's a plethora, tons and tons of shellfish. Again, my husband's allergic, so I save that for work. I usually eat shrimp and things like that at lunchtime, like a shrimp salad or something like that. Any kind of pork, If I haven't already said that, you can do a wild game. We have a fair bit of wild game here. We have a lot of moose, and bison isn't so wild anymore, but bison is also here. Ostrich. We can even get kangaroo and things like that. Now, I know if you don't live in a major city or something like that, then sometimes you don't have access to those things. So if you have limited access, stick with your regulars. Fish, pork, beef, chicken, sometimes lamb for folks. It can be a little spendy. Or if you live in a community or you know a hunter or somebody who hunts, you can always get venison is great. Wild caught boar, wild caught moose, even bear. We can get bear up here if you eat that. So any kind of meat, pretty much, that's not been seasoned with things, and you just need to do your own seasonings at home. Then many vegetables. So not all vegetables, and I'll be honest, I'm not in a rut, but I kind of stick with a similar type of vegetables. I do try to eat the rainbow, as they say. Cauliflower, broccoli, cabbages, kale, those are all great. Your green leafies, so romaine lettuce and spinach, any kind of lettuce, really. Radicchio, you can do butter lettuces and leaf lettuces, but in any kind of lettuce, really. Leafy greens, think leafy greens, lots of leafy greens. And if you don't want to just, like, eat leafy greens, there's lots of others. So we eat a fair bit of beet, roasted. I like it raw, just shred it up into salads. It's great steamed. It's pretty good boiled. You can make it into soups. You can, our favorite is roasted. It makes it kind of sweet. And you can do golden beets or regular colored beets, the really purpley ones. You can do water chestnuts, bamboo shoots, palm hearts, artichokes, carrots, of course, celery, all of those standard things. On reintros, when you get to reintro, obviously there are more green beans and snap peas and things like that. I'm mainly talking about that first phase, that kind of intro phase, because it sometimes takes a while to get through that. Sea vegetables, you can do nori wraps, you can do kelp or kelp and stews, mushrooms, zucchini, just so many things. And then for fruit, really you can have pretty much any fruit. The only thing about fruit is for some people, not all people, I'm in that some people category. I can't eat a lot of it. Too many. I can eat carbs, and I do eat carbs, but I can't eat a ton of carbs. So I try to get the majority of my carbs from either low sugar fruits, so berries, apples, things like that, or from like sweet potato is where I get the majority of the carbs that I do consume from, other than the natural carbs occurring in, broccoli does have carbs, so, but fruit, like watermelon. The other day I had watermelon, which is a really high sugar fruit, but it was delicious. It's been hot here. We wanted to go to the beach. We took some watermelon along. It was lovely. It was so good. It's just not something that I eat every single day. So, but everyone is different. There are lots of people on AIP that have no trouble with fruit, sugar at all. I guess I'm unlucky. That way I do have to watch it. There are, right now in season here, and look around or talk to your farmers, but in season here, all the berries, all the melons, plums, apricots, all the stone fruits, peaches, nectarines, all of those are just thriving right now. We have wild blackberries growing everywhere here, so you can just walk down the street. Limes and lemons are coming out off the trees. So much produce. So all that's really good. Then we get into the fats. The thing I miss, and some of you might, I really miss nuts and seeds, but right now I can do fat and coconut. If you have trouble with coconut, avocado is a really good fat. And then I get fat from oily based fishes, so I eat a fair bit of like sardines, salmon, things like that, or fattier fish. I get a fair bit from that. I do eat coconut, but I know a lot of folks that are on AIP that can't tolerate it or have trouble with that. So you just listen to your body and do what's best for you. For starches, so there are, of course, a lot of processed starches that you can have on AIP that are AIP legal, as it were. And again, for me and my body, I have to limit that. I do still eat them. I still make cookies. I still make biscuits. I have a 10-year-old, so we still do a lot of that stuff because I don't want, he doesn't have to be as restricted as I am, and I want him to have a fairly normal childhood. And by normal, I mean when his friends are having birthday cake, I want him to be able to enjoy that too. I don't want him to feel like he is excluded just because he eats differently. So we still do a lot of that. I've just learned to, earlier I learned to paleoize them, and now I've learned to AIP them. And so actually a lot of the recipes you'll see on this channel will be recipe renos, where we've taken a favorite thing and created something else that's either similar or the same to it, just to enjoy, so that we're not really changing our diet in huge ways, but nutrient value-wise we are. And reaction we are. So you'll see that. Starches, so sweet potato is great. That's a good one. You can do, now I have some success with sweet potato noodles. They're called, you find them in usually in the Asian section or an Asian market. And they're for a dish called japchae, which I'll do a recipe video on because it's actually quite good. Really, really yummy. You can treat those like a spaghetti noodle. I will have them with pesto sauce, a homemade AIP pesto. Or I have them in like a japchae or like a chicken noodle stew if we want to do something like that. Again, I'm limited on my carbs, so I don't eat a ton of them, but probably once or twice a month I have some sort of sweet potato noodle dish for a meal. So there's that. Then there's all the flours, the tapioca and arrowroot, the cassava flours, coconut flours. I would consider that almost more of a fat than I would an actual starch, but it's often used in cakes and cookies and things like that. So what else? Convenience foods. Our AIP convenience food is much more limited than what you can find in the US. I was just down in the US here a few weeks ago on a camping trip with my son, and there were so many things. You could even find them in Walmart. They even have, Siete has a really cool brand of cassava wraps that you can use. There were things on the shelf that I'd never seen before. So pasta made out of hearts of palm. There are the miracle noodles if you can handle them. I did not have a lot of success with them, but a lot of people can. Just a plethora of things. You can even buy grass-fed beef in your Walmart, which is amazing. So there's tons of that kind of stuff. In Canada, we're much more limited in our convenience foods, but we can find things like cassava chips. And there's a company called Glutenol, I think, like Null, like to nullify. And they make a whole variety of gluten-free items, but they have one cookie that is AIP friendly, and they have this coconut cookie, and it's these little coconut bars. They're quite sweet. They have all the ingredients are coconut based, so coconut nectar, etc., like that. So sometimes you can find little things in the store like that are a nice treat, truly a treat. These are just the junk food things. So and the reason I'm talking about that is some people are like, no, you can't have any junk food. You can't, do that. It'll ruin you. I'm trying to come from a place of reality. The reality is that a lot of people who have to go on AIP, because let's face it, most people would not choose to go on AIP just for the fun of it. But most of the people that have to go on AIP are either making a significant change in diet already. So some of those convenience foods can help transition and make that transition a little easier. In addition to that, convenience is a real thing. I'm busy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super busy. I work full time. I do this for fun. I look after my son. I, want to have a life too. And in all of that, I have to meditate and have a lifestyle and do all that stuff. And I have other responsibilities. So I'm busy. And there are times when I'm traveling or when I am just have a really hectic week that I need to be able to grab easy foods that I may or may not have had time to prep. Now I do prep every week, but there are just sometimes you run out of things, or it's just a day, or maybe you're not feeling well. For several years, I had days where I couldn't get out of bed. I haven't had that since I've been on AIP, which is amazing. But on those days, you still need to nourish yourself in order to stay well. So, no, cassava chips are not like highly nutrient dense. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that sometimes it's nice to have a little something that you can just grab to get the calories, to have fuel for your body, until you can either feel better or get to a place, or get back to your kitchen if you forgot to take something with you, so that you're not reverting back to foods that will actually make you sick. So I'm pro convenience food in moderation, and or as help to transition. But yeah, so those are kind of the main things that a person can eat. But that seems limited, but the reality is you can make so much great food with that. We still make tacos. We still make spaghetti. And the boys have regular spaghetti sauce, and I tend to have pesto because it's just easier. I haven't found a no-mato sauce, as they say it, that I enjoy yet. And I also don't crave tomatoes like some people do, so I don't seek it out necessarily. I still have avocado toast. I just make an AIP bread, which a recipe will be coming out for eventually. If you want a decent one, actually, there's one, I'll put a link to it below. I use it as a base for a lot of things. It's an AIP Irish soda bread. It's on a different station, but I'll link it all. I can't remember the name right now. But I take her recipe, I don't put in I just tweaked it a tiny bit, and it actually makes a really nice loaf of bread that you could actually do sandwiches with and things like that if you wanted that. I wouldn't recommend that on a daily basis, like a regular meal thing, but certainly as a once in a while thing, it's kind of nice to have that. For wraps and things like that, I have a decent lavash bread that's actually quite good. Or you can do cassava wraps, which are super easy to make, and again, I can do videos on those if you like. And they're really great. The cassava tortillas end up tasting like soft flour tortillas, which shocked me when I made them, and they're super easy to make. I also have a flatbread recipe that I use. I think it's on Michelle Spring's channel. A bunch of people have done it. There's a ton of really great videos out there, really beautifully shot videos on YouTube that are for if you just type in AIP flatbread. Those are really nice, and those I bake them in the oven a whole bunch at a time, and I batch cook those and keep them in the freezer, and they're great. I love those as a hamburger bun. If we're gonna have burgers or something like that, then I'll use that sometimes, or do a half as a open face hamburger. I like it for any kind of like sandwich. Like last night we had breakfast for dinner, so the guys had gluten-free French toast and scrambled eggs and bacon, and I had bacon and strawberries, and I had the flatbreads, and I just made like little bacon sandwiches. It was really good. So there's that. There's so much that we can eat, and I think in terms of like how to respond to sometimes rude people, not always, most people are just kind of curious or like, oh, that's really different, how does that work? I found, but sometimes people are quite rude actually. I think, any time that you're doing something different than the norm, a great response, especially if it's about health, is just to say, oh, I'm trying this out. It makes me feel good. Like I feel better when I eat this way, and so I'm just choosing to eat this way. Or, if it's a total stranger on the bus or whatnot, and they're rude about it, just say, everybody has a different way of eating. This is just how I choose to eat. More than often than not, though, it comes up with people if you're in a social setting and you're trying to order a meal or something like that at a restaurant, or if you're at a work event. I get asked the question a lot at work. Although, again, because I live on the West Coast, lots of people eat strangely here. So it's not that big of a deal. They're just like, oh, okay. But when I go back home, I'm from the States in the Midwest there, it is way more unusual. And so I do get a lot of oh, why are you doing that? Or that's so weird that you're not ordering ranch dressing on your salad, or, whatever. Because I'm a bigger girl, though, honestly, most people just think I'm on a diet, which Technically I am, but not necessarily for that. But when they ask, I mean, I think a kind answer is in order, and you can just say, hey, look, this helps me feel my best, and so that's why I'm choosing to eat this way right now. If you love them and you know them, or if they're friends, obviously go into more detail. I know that with my family and friends, they know a lot about the diet, not so much because they want to do it, but some of them do have some health issues that might be addressed with it. And so I do try to share when I'm feeling better. I do try to share that with other people in ways that they can feel better too, potentially. Not a doctor, but it has had, I can't even stress, a profound effect on my ability to function in life and to be present in my life. I'm hoping to make Tuesday Tea a regular series where we just talk about AIP topics. A lot of people ask me about being in a family who doesn't follow AIP and how do I do that? Is that a challenge? I think maybe in the next one we'll talk about some strategies around that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for having tea with me, and I'll see you next Tuesday.